Hey everyone, welcome back to another Around the Wicket podcast. And this is our first video podcast, which is not IPL related. We're going to talk about the India versus South Africa T20 International Series, which ended as a draw at 2-all. Unfortunately, the last match got washed out at Chinnaswamy Stadium. Om was actually at that match. We would have had a vlog if not for the rain. But it's been a pretty close series so far. What are your guys' overall thoughts on the series, like the entertainment value and the level of each of the teams?
Yeah, it was an awesome series coming right out of the IPL. It's often hard to match the IPL's levels, but this series definitely didn't disappoint. I think after the first two games, we were pretty down bad because obviously we knew the fifth game was happening in Bangalore and wanted it to be a decider, which we got, but unfortunately it rained out. But yeah, I mean, full of drama as we'll get to, for example, obviously in game one with all the dropped catches, high scoring chases. The series had everything. So uh, yeah, it'll be fun to talk about. It was an awesome series.
Okay, so the series, like if you look at it, in a way, it was very dramatic. There were a lot of chases. There were a lot of interesting things going on. But if you think about it in a deep perspective, who cares? Like genuinely, who cares about the series? It's a random bilateral series after 2 months of IPL played between India and South Africa. Two, well, I mean, India, Australia, India, New Zealand at least excites you when it's played with India, South Africa. It's not even playing in high-profile stadiums, right? You're playing in Rajkot, Cuttack, not in Firoza Kotla, but you're playing Arun Jaitley. So who cares? Just genuinely. Apart from that, yeah, we saw some good innings, some Klassen, Van der Dussen, Ishan Kishan. Sure, like it helped, but my overall thoughts are who cares? So, like, it's just generally because if you think about it, it's not even that good of World Cup prep because one, you're playing on proper. Oh shit, Firoza Kotla is Arun Jaitley. My bad. I'm so sorry. Anyway, so first of all, you're playing on proper Indian tracks. Like some of them were just not tracks you get in Australia other than Arun Jaitley. Other than that, if you look at it, it's not really helping you as much because you've just come out of a huge IPL. So even though you've had this 5 match series, you're still going to be completely biased by the 2 months of IPL because it was a longer period of time. And you saw the competition between people from across the world. So, in retrospect, what is the point of the series?
Now you're all.
Like,
I'm sure
who
everyone's
cares?
excited. Everyone's much more excited after Om really
Well,
solved
I'm
that.
sure the series got lots of revenue and it sustains Cricket South Africa for like 2 years. But let's forget about the health of international cricket for a second.
Still, we do not care.
Yeah, sure. We'll move on to something we do care about, which is Rishabh Pant. And this series was definitely important for me in terms of Rishabh Pant's batting, not really his captaincy, that's kind of irrelevant, but his batting because uh, I've made some harsh calls on my World Cup squad, which we'll talk about later. But just to give you some numbers on Rishabh Pant, and then we'll talk about how he did. His average in the series was 14.5 and his strike rate was only 105. And to give you a broader context, since his return to the T20 side um, in 2021 after the Border Gavaskar Trophy, he's averaging only 27 and striking at only 127. So it's not been that great. Everyone talks about his potential, but we've not really seen it for T20Is in India. Uh, what do you make of Rishabh Pant's performance in this series, I guess?
Look, talking about Rishabh Pant's performance, we've seen him play well in ODIs recently and Test cricket over a long period of time. But then we've never actually seen him perform in T20 internationals. So it's not something new. He's had two good IPL seasons, and the rest of all the other seasons have been flops. His DRS success rate in IPL is around 17%, which is worse than like I don't know, man, Virat Kohli, right? So like you can't have Rishabh Pant as your captain. I think if you compare the success rates of anybody to Rishabh Pant, he's going to like the DRS rates because that's one of the most important decisions you make as a captain. It's really low. Even his bowling changes, his fielding placements. you could see that Heinrich Klaassen and Van der Dusen, when they were batting, they were targeting a certain area of the ground, and they hit 3 to 4 fours and sixes in that same area. Now, if that is happening, it makes common sense to put like a fielder there, right? Talking about Heinrich Klaassen, when the ball is being bowled wide and slower balls, a slow pitch, you have your third man up. 3 boundaries went through late cuts to third man, and still third man did not go back. You're leaking so many runs there, and the captaincy is just it's been bad for Delhi, it's been bad for India. Other than that, his batting in T20 internationals never shows potential. On the World Cup squad, I think he has to be there because he's a left-hander and whatnot. Rahul Dravid will still put him no matter what. But if you look at it from a deeper perspective, who cares about the series?
Yeah, you
Right.
mentioned that. And
Yeah.
like Vivian, going on from Om's point, like Rahul Dravid has said that he'll continue to back Rishabh Pant and back players in general, which I guess is a good thing. But yeah, it's a good thing, but it has some bad sides to it, obviously. He also mentioned, like Om said, that Pant is really important because of his left-handedness. Vivian, I know you're not a believer in the left-hand, right-hand batting partnership thing. So what do you make of Pant's performance and
Once
his
again, Rehan, are you a believer of that? Because even I'm not. It makes absolutely no difference.
I mean, no, I mean, see, I don't think it makes absolutely no difference, but it's definitely not something that you base your team around. I mean, sure, it may be an annoyance to bowlers. It's definitely not something that you switch your order up around for, play some people out of. It's not something that should hold any serious weight because it doesn't have the impact that a lot of people think it's not as important, especially when you're
Yeah,
playing at
so
a
like
professional level and not with a bunch of like under 14s.
so if you build on what Vivian is saying, would you rather have Suryakumar Yadav, Hardik Pandya, Dinesh Karthik, or would you rather have Rishabh Pant and two or the other three? Right? Just because Rishabh Pant is left-hander. Because to be fair, the only thing saving Rishabh Pant right now in this team is that he's a left-hander and he has potential. All the other three have performed better than him consistently and over a long period of time. So if you look at it from that way, to be fair, form-wise, Ishan Kishan goes over Rishabh Pant because like he's also a left-handed wicketkeeper batsman. But Rishabh Pant will be backed by India. And I think a lot of that credit has to go to like his performance in the Test and ODI formats. But like we all know, it's Steve Smith, Jordan, and all that. Your contributions in two the longer formats of the game, don't really result in contributions in the shortest format of the game.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think it's useful to have a left hand, right hand partnership, but I don't think you should pick your 11 based on that. You should pick your 11 best players, and then depending on let's say like how many overs a left hand spinner has, you decide the entry points of a left hand batsman or a right hand batsman. But you pick your 11 best players. That's the philosophy that I go with. So, and like I mentioned earlier, made some harsh calls on Rishabh Pant.
No, that's no.
Um,
I agree with Rehan there. Like that's a fair enough point. But I mean, what we've seen teams do in the past, in this is like IPL international cricket, is that they'll send some players out of position. They'll send some players earlier than they need to go, just in order to maintain some sort of a left hand right hand thing going. Which I think we can all agree is absurd because as you said, it's about mainly the point is getting your best players out there. Left hand, right hand doesn't have that much of an impact.
Yeah,
yeah,
I think I remember one instance from RCB's campaign 2020, if I'm not wrong. They delayed sending AB de Villiers to like number 6 or number 7 just so they could pop out left-handers because an off spinner was bowling. Like, why? You can't delay sending the greatest ever T20 player to play the game just because you have left-handers in the shed. And I think that's an ideology that too many people in cricket have. And I think that's an ideology that bowlers know that teams have, so they know how to bowl. It's not like you're telling Ravichandran Ashwin has a great record in his left-handers, but it's not like you're saying he's not going to bowl well to a right-hander, right? Because no matter what his record against left-handers, he is still a good bowler. And in T20, you have 4 overs per bowler. They're going to be able to bowl to a right-handed batsman or left-handed batsman, right? So sending in a particular left-handed batsman to play against a specific bowler is not okay. But sending in a batsman who is known to play well against a specific bowler, like Dhoni against Muralidharan, that's what teams should do, and not look at left-handedness or right-handedness, but a caliber of players.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams overthink the left hand right hand rule, and yeah, it's overdone a lot in T20 cricket. Um, but like Om mentioned, he mentioned Ishan Kishan. We'll move on to the openers now because we had a completely new set of openers. No KL Rahul through injury and no Rohit Sharma. He's in England. So Gaikwad and Ishan Kishan were our new openers. Ishan Kishan obviously had a run for a few series before this also, but this was Gaikwad's first extended run, and he got 5 innings actually because he played his innings in the latest T20. And we'll talk about Gaikwad first. 96 runs this series at an average of 19.2 and strike rate of 131. I want to point out again because Om keeps mentioning that this was a useless series, but we'll try to find some connection to the World Cup in Australia. Gaikwad's 4 dismissals I mean, yeah, 4 dismissals out of 5 have been against pace this series. So that's just a thing to keep in mind. But and if you take out that one like 40-50 he had, it's a really poor series for him.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Obviously, I was looking forward to seeing him at this level play in this T20 international series. But as you said, that one innings in the third T20, in the third T20 against South Africa. Apart from that, fairly disappointing, fairly disappointing series from Gaikwad. So, yeah, I agree. I don't think Gaikwad is presented as much as a conundrum or anything of interest to the Indian selectors moving forward as Ishan Kishan has. But I mean, it's interesting that I think it's fair that they decide to try him out. He played well in the IPL for a bit now, but he's clearly, or at least so far, he hasn't been able to step up to the plate at this level.
Look, I think every international player, every player who comes onto the international circuit needs a bit of time to settle down and get into the groove. This isn't the case for all players. We saw Suryakumar Yadav and Ishan Kishan take to the international circuits immediately. But some people do need time to settle down, and I think we need to understand a distinction between that. But that being said, I think Ruturaj Gaikwad is someone who is extremely overrated right now based on his recent performances. I think he's still being carried by one 500 or 600 run season of that year and decent domestic performances of that time. But of late in the IPL over the longer run, we saw a couple of innings and then a complete dip. And 5 innings for India plus a couple before. We didn't see much from him. I think he's a very classical player. I don't think he's a T20 player. I think he's an ODI player. I think he's someone who will do well in the ODI game. Strike rate of 130. That's a very ODI thing to do. And if you see his dismissals, it's all against pace, as Rehan said, and 4 or 5 of those are against pace because he gets out very early. So he's getting out when the pace bowlers are bowling in the power play. And other than that, we saw all his dismissals, even in the IPL. It's very like a dismissal where a ball is bowled back of a length, the ball comes here, he nicks it and it goes to the keeper and whatnot. So I think they're very common dismissals for Ruturaj Gaikwad, and I think he can stop it. I think he has a lot of problems in Test cricket, but I think he's an ODI player. I think he's meant for that kind of game, not for a T20 game. Even though he can, we've seen what he can do. He had beautiful 500 600 season, but a lot of people have those. Consistency is what makes you great, and I think he can come back next season and have a good season. But he's not even in content. He's not even one of the names that are in contention for the World Cup squad because we have. I would put both Shaw and Gill over him to an extent. I'd even put actually no, I wouldn't put Abhishek Sharma over him, but I would put Shaw and Gill over him. I would definitely put Rahul Tripathi over him though. And this isn't only based on this season's form. Rahul Tripathi has been very consistent over the years. So you know what? I'm just going to move on to Ishan Kishan because we're going to do that anyway. I think he's a good talent. He's surprisingly found form. I think he's a clean hitter of the ball. Left-handedness in the upper order is quite handy because if you look at against the swing and whatnot, just when the bowlers are trying to find the perfect length, it might hinder their patterns. But if you see Ishan Kishan, he also adds an additional keeping option in your side. He's an explosive player. I think he can be played anywhere in the order, not only in the open position. So to me, it could be a possible showdown between Ishan Kishan and Rishabh Pant as well, rather than using Ishan Kishan only as an opener. But that won't happen, as you know, with the Indian side. But I think he's, as Vivin said, he's provided a headache to selectors.
Yeah, and yeah, I definitely don't think that India will ever use Ishan Kishan in the middle order again. I mean, they moved Rohit Sharma, our best ever T20 opener, to number three just to fit in Ishan Kishan during a World Cup match. So unfortunately, I don't think that'll happen. I think if he plays, he'll be over there. But like Om said, he's had a good series, 206 runs, 41 average, and 150 strike rate. But that's just if you look at the surface level. If you want to look more towards Australia, um, you'll see that his average against spin is 91 and his strike rate is 233. That means his stats versus pace drop down significantly. So his average is 28 and his strike rate is just 117. So and he even in the IPL he had a lot of problems against pace. And we want to steer these conversations towards Australia because that's obviously the end goal. Vivian, how do you rate Ishan Kishan, and do you think he'll get a ticket to Australia?
I feel like, yeah. I mean, yeah. As you said, he performed well. This series, he had three pretty good innings out of the four games that were played, and I think it creates an interesting dilemma for selectors who are. I mean, obviously the top two, I would say, still, if the World Cup were happening tomorrow, you would still probably in or sorry, if the World Cup was happening sooner, you'd still probably send uh, KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma over Ishan Kishan. But I feel like they'll play him in a few more series. He's a very interesting batsman, but I agree with you in the sense that it's not the same, considering that obviously his surfaces are different here in India, and so you have to take that into account. But I think that if he keeps up this form, he can definitely go as maybe as a substitute. Maybe he won't go in the main team just as of yet, given his current performance. But I think he's definitely a replacement for either one of the openers, but he's probably over Shikhar Dhawan, who uh, obviously he's not. A lot of people are saying that he probably isn't going to make it into the team even as a substitute at the moment. So, or definitely maybe as a substitute, but definitely not into the main team. So, Ishan Krishna will definitely be a more handy in that regard.
Yeah, and yeah, so that's our batsmen. We'll move on to our bowlers now, and we'll focus on the pacers because that's the main talking point. We basically know that Jadeja and Chahal are going to be our spinners, but the pacers the main talking point. Who's going to accompany Bumrah to Australia? So obviously Bhuvneshwar won man of the series. He had an economy of six throughout the series, 6 wickets, which is the second highest, and he had an amazing spell of 4 for 13 in Qatar. Other pacers, Harshal, 7 wickets, most in the series, um, an economy of 7.3, which is again really good for a primarily death bowler. And our third pacer, who we used, was Avesh Khan. And Avesh Khan had a very disappointing series for me. He obviously took 4 wickets in the fourth T20, but before that, he played all the games and got 0 wickets. So he was really disappointing for me. But what are your thoughts on India's pace bowling contingent uh, looking ahead?
Look, I think there are a lot of pacers. I don't think Avesh Khan is one to be considered in the main. I think I put him in my reserves or something like that, but I don't think he's one to be considered. I think he's considered because some of the other bowlers have missed out due to injury, whatnot. Um, so you have Umran Malik and Arshdeep, who are new to the squad. They won't go to the World Cup, but I'm just like talking about the pace bowling contingent in general. So your options for the World Cup include Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, Jasprit Bumrah, Mohammad Shami, Harshal Patel, Natarajan, Avesh Khan, Deepak Chahar. I'm missing out somebody in this check. I don't think so. So I would say these are your main pacers. And then you have your sideline pacers who will accompany you. I don't know who those are. Oh wait, Muhammad Siraj. I don't know if he's still in contention, but he's somewhere there. So you have these guys, and if you look at these guys, you can't play anybody other than Harshal Patel, Jasprit Bumrah, and Bhuvanesha Kumar. Bhuvanesha Kumar is he's a different breed. Jasprit Bumrah is a walk-in. Harshal Patel is the best death bowler out of any of these, and the best middle over bowler out of any of these. Um, Mohammad Shami is an up-top bowler. You have Bhuvanesha Kumar, you don't need him. Deepak Chahar, up-top bowler. Bhuvanesha Kumar, you don't need him. Natarajan, death bowler. Harshal Patel better. So Avesh Khan, Avesh Khan to me just exists as of yet. I don't think he's that he's put both of his feet in, but he is over Shami and Chahar for me, just because Bhuvanesha Kumar does the exact same thing Shami and Chahar do. So if you go with Bhuvanesha Kumar, Jasprit Bumrah, Harshal Patel, you don't need to use Bumrah sparing like the Mumbai Indians had to. You can bowl 2 overs Bumrah up top, 2 overs Bhuvanesha Kumar up top. No, actually, you can bowl 3 overs Bhuvanesha Kumar up top. So 3 Bhuvi, 2 Bumrah up top. Then you have 2 Harshal in the middle, 2 Harshal in the depth, 2 Bumrah in the back end, or 1 Bhuvanesha Kumar also in the back can come in the back end. He's very economical. Wherever you bowl Bhuvi, he's going to be economical, right? So it's a good set of paces that you have. What concerns me is the spinners, but we'll get back to that later.
Yeah, I
Yeah, Vivin,
agree. I agree on that front in the sense of Harshal Patel. Uh, yeah, I agree in the sense that the death bowling toss up is would have been between Nattu and Harshal, but right now, first of all after the IPL of course, but especially after this series, 7 wickets in total. I think he took 4 in 1 game. Really good stuff from Harshal Patel, and Nattu on the international front off late hasn't been doing much, and so I think he needs a lot. He needs more time. He needs more games in order to be considered over Harshal Patel, who's in pretty good form. So definitely Harshal Patel, and as Om said about Bumrah, that's a no brainer. And with Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, that creates a fairly solid pace bowling attack.
yeah, and I'll reserve my thoughts for not too later because spoiler alert, I have him in my squad for Australia. But we'll talk about that more when we get to it. Om, you said you had some concerns over the spinners. Uh, what are those exactly? Because
So
if you
the
look at this,
first,
if you
the
look at
first thing
this,
I'm going to say is, if you don't have Nattu in your Australia squad, you're mad. The second thing I'm going to say is, the spinners. Your conundrum is: do you play Washington Sundar? Do you play Akshar Patel? Or which one of those goes in the squad? If none, does Ravindra Jadeja get in the squad, or does Kuldeep Yadav get in the squad? Because you can't have more than 3 spinners, right? And you want your best spinners, but Jadeja and Chahal aren't your best spinners. So you have a group of a few spinners. I would say you have Jadeja, Chahal, Kuldeep Yadav, Akshar Patel, Washington Sundar, Rahul Chahar. Rahul Chahar, Varun Chakravarti lesser because of the horrendous
Montgomery
act.
Ashwin.
Ravichandran Ashwin, sure. So you have these guys, and now you look at who you want to play in that 11. Assuming everything is fine, 2 best spinners who you want to play in that 11. That's Kuldeep Yadav, Yuzvendra Chahal. But can you play Kuldeep Yadav and Yuzvendra Chahal in 11 where you have Jasprit Bumrah too? Because that's almost 3 solid number 11s. So that's a no. So then you have to look at other options. So you have to play one out of Akshar Patel, Washington Sundar, Ravindra Jadeja, and you can pick only 2 of those in the squad. Who do you pick? Washington Sundar has been injured for a long time, but based on form, he's completely clear than Akshar Patel, even in his batting. And Ravindra Jadeja, he's been out of form. He hasn't played a lot of cricket. Akshar has played more than him. So like, what dynamics go on there, right? So the Indian
Yeah,
selectors need to think a lot on this. And if it was me in a perfect world, I'd play both Kuldeep and Chahal. But if you're genuinely building a team to play a World Cup where batsmen will, like Virat Kohli, will probably choke because they're not in form, you can't do that. So I think that's the confusion that will be going on based on like which 3 spinners you have in your squad and team.
yeah, you brought up some interesting questions, and I'm sure we'll all answer them when we give out our squad. Um, but one main talking point of the series and one highlight for India has been 2 comebacks, Hardik Pandya and Dinesh Karthik. It's been brilliant to see them again after redemptive IPL seasons. Hardik, of course, winning captain, um, great with the ball, great with the bat, great as captain. DK obviously relishing in his new role as RCB finisher, and like almost single-handedly with Shabazz carrying them through the first half of that season. But let me just give you some stats to put this into perspective. So Karthik has 92 runs. Keep in mind batting at number six at a strike rate of 159, and he's hit a boundary every 3.8 balls. But now if you move that to his stats at the death in the death overs, that's last four overs, 84 runs out of 92, strike rate jumps up to 187, and the boundaries go to every 3.2 balls, which is insane for a finisher. He's averaging above 50 as well. Um, Dinesh Karthik is really back, and it's good to see him back in the T20 format doing so well, because he never should have been dropped based on one ODI match where no batsman except uh, Jaddu and Dhoni did well. What do you make of DK's performance? And we'll move on to Hardik later.
Yeah, I mean, both of them obviously carried us hard in in that last T20 that we saw. They saved our batting front. We were a bit gone without them both. But yeah, on the DK front, I think we were all excited after the RCB performance. He single-handedly saved RCB many times, uh, as you talked about, and you said every 3.2 balls in the death, which is in the death overs for DK a boundary, which is an absolutely insane statistic, considering, yeah, over 90 runs as a number six batsman, and he's completely killed it in the first game. He In every game he's gotten a chance. He's performed in the series. I mean, apart from game three, game one he got only a couple of balls. Game two, he scored, I think, about like 25, 30 runs, and in game four, obviously, he completely saved us with a half century. And so, uh, yeah, I think it begs an interesting question of whether you're going to keep both Pant and DK in the side. It'll be interesting to see if we're going to bring in more bowlers. If we're gonna only keep one, maybe drop Pant for a game. Will be interesting to just keep DK in the squad, because Pant hasn't been doing great off late. But that's probably not gonna happen. We're probably gonna see them both in for a few more games, like we have in this South Africa series. So yeah.
Yeah, you're the RCB fan here. What do you make of Dinesh Karthik's comeback to the international circuit?
So it's deserved. It's everything that we like. I don't have much to add on Dinesh Karthik because he's just doing what he's doing his job, and he's got his shit straight, unlike other people. So I don't have much to add because he's he's doing what he's meant to do. It's a great comeback, and I think no one deserves that spot more than him. But I fear he'll not get it.
Hmm. And obviously Hardik's back. He also had a great series, 117 runs, third highest in the series, second highest for India. He's had two not outs out of the four games he's batted in, and almost average of 60 at a strike rate of 154. Insanely good stuff. You love to see Hardik doing so well, especially having more responsibility batting at number five now.
Yeah, 100%. Uh, as we mentioned, DK and Hardik uh, have come back, have risen from the ashes, and Hardik obviously was going through a much worse spell than DK was, as Hardik himself mentioned. Like about 8 9 months ago, if you told him that he'd be in this position, winning an IPL firstly as a captain, and then performing wonderfully for his country, and being the star of the show in the South Africa tour. Few would have believed it, because he was down bad, and yeah, he's doing great now. Great now, particularly obviously we've seen with the bat this series, and yeah, it's awesome to see. Like Om said with DK, there's not too much to add there. He's just been doing fairly well.
Yeah, definitely. Good to see Hardik and DK back. And before we move on to our squads, a word on South Africa's performance this season. this series because they gave us a fight. Obviously, Killer Miller's back as we saw in the IPL. Rassi always does well against us, and they've got a few other performers stepping up like Klassen, who did well against us back in 2018 also, and obviously they have their spinners like Maharaj and Shamsi, and obviously Rabada, Nokia, and even Ngidi in his last two games bowled really well. So they look like a decent side. I'm not sure if they're a top four contender in Australia for me yet, but they might be like the party poopers. They might ruin the tournament for some other big sides.
Yeah, I liked. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So three teams are going to get in India, England, and you would assume Australia. The competition is between New Zealand, West Indies, South Africa, and all the other teams. Pakistan for the other one.
Pakistan, yeah.
So what? Yeah. So what I think is they have a good pace bowling attack. They have I wouldn't say even decent spin bowling attack. They have a mediocre spin bowling attack because Shamsi is on and off. What I'd say is the only two good batsmen that they have in the lineup are David Miller and Quinton de Kock, because everyone else generally you associate them with batting at a slow pace. Uh, Temba Bavuma, Van der Dussen. Van der Dussen might have had a high strike rate this season and they might have been striking well. But like if you just it's not the feel that someone like an AB de Villiers would give you batting in those middle overs. I don't think these are the guys that can take a game away from you when you need 80 from 35, right? So David Miller is the only one I see that way, like as a game changing player. But everyone else, I see players who need other players um, with them in order to win their team a game because they can't do it on their own. That's just my opinion. So I don't think they're a batting sound side. I think they're a completely bowling sound side with Ngedi, Rabar, and Artia. It's an amazing pace bowling trio, but I don't see them going too far. I'm surprised they beat us in the first two games. But what I've seen with India is they always need a couple of games to get adjusted to what they're doing, and then they come good. We saw it in the England Test. We saw it in the previous World Cup. We saw it now when they won two games in the trot. We keep seeing that with India, so I'm not going to be too concerned about that. I'm just going to say that South Africa aren't it yet. They need, I think they need someone like a Navy de Villiers back. So maybe a Devil Bevis or Tristan Stubbs can do it for them, but only time will tell. They were without De Kock this time, and they were without Markram also. So when they come back, maybe a bit more firepower.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
Vivin,
I was.
one thing I want to mention before you get to it, one of the most undertalked guys this season, like IPL and the series, I think, has been Dwayne Pretorius. He's bowled really well in the IPL, and he batted well in the IPL alongside MS Dhoni in one of those games, helped him finish it. Um, and MS Dhoni got all the credit, but Pretorius had a
Yeah,
large
yeah,
role to
yeah.
play in that, and even now promoted to number three on and off, but a couple games he really attacked the spin and detonated. I mean, wait, what's the word I can use? Um, I don't know, grounded Chahal and Akshar Patel. So he's been really undertalked the last few months, and of course, you being a CSK fan, I was hoping you could talk some more about him.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, during the IPL season, I talked a lot about the glorious Dwayne Pretorius. Yo, that rhymed. I didn't even notice. I talked a lot about him because I was a big fan. I mean, in this series, he didn't really impress with the ball as much as he did. One of his big things in the IPL was not particularly that he takes wickets per se, but that he was very, very economical. That he was able to bowl very tight lines and lengths. And he wasn't particularly bad this season, but oh sorry, in this series, but he wasn't very economical in, like, I think three of the games he was decently expensive. But uh, for example, in the last game where India only scored some 170 runs, he gave 40 in his 4 overs, which is not great, and only for 1 wicket. But with the bat, I like to see him stepping up at number three. That's interesting, because that's obviously not something he did with CSK. He batted, as Rehan said, as you said, much more of a finisher role, and here he's taking on uh, a similar type of job in the sense that he's coming out and he's trying to be aggressive, but it's obviously a very different role that he's playing. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what he can do. I'm obviously a huge fan, but this series with the ball, it wasn't really it. But with the bat, it was pretty interesting to see his role for South Africa.
Well, once
Yeah,
again, let's do a couple of predictions over here. So the Australia Sri Lanka match is going on. Who do you think is winning that one? So Sri Lanka is 258 all out. Australia is 221 for 7. 38 and 30 balls, 3 wickets in hand. Hasranga with 1 over. Vandersay Wells with 5 each. Karnataka Shanaka have a lot of overs left. So, what are your thoughts?
Um, so going by the past few games, I got to back my neighbors out here in Sri Lanka. They've completely outplayed Australia, a weak Australia, I must say, but they've outplayed them, and Australia are just finding a way to lose. So I believe they're going to find a way to lose again.
See, so I don't think it's genuinely a weak Australia because they've got a lot of their main players, but they are beating a good Australian side. So I'm still gonna back Australia. Never mind. Cameron Green just got just as soon as I said that. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm still gonna back Australia because Pat Cummins, but let's see.
I was gonna
Anyway,
see. The thing is, if I would back Australia, if the 36 of 27, I wouldn't back them. If it was like maybe 18 of 27 with 2 wickets left, then I would back them because Pat Cummins is there. But no, I don't think they're gonna get this. I'm backing Sri Lanka as well.
only time will tell.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, let's move on to our World Cup squad. So how we're going to do this is every T20 series that India plays, at the end of our review recap, we'll give you our updated squads and we'll see how it changes over time and how it matches to the one that the BCCI eventually selects, which I'm sure will be very different because the BCCI is dumb. But yeah, let's move on. Vivin, want to give us your squad first? Your
Sure thing,
11,
man.
your visitors, and your reserves.
Okay. Okay, sure. So my main squad goes uh, KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma opening the batting. Then in the middle order, you have Kohli, Surya Kumar Yadav, Hardik Pandya. Sorry, in the middle order, Hardik Pandya and I want to say Dinesh Karthik, but but maybe Rishabh Pant. But I'm gonna go with my gut. I'm gonna back Dinesh Karthik, and then to pull it in towards the end. Or okay, so the possibility is that you play Pant and DK, and then you have Harshal, Bumrah, Yuzi, and Bhuvi, or you keep only DK, you drop Pant, you have Harshal, Bumrah, Yuzi, some other spinner, I'm not too sure yet, and then Bhuvaneshwar Kumar at the end. Substitutes Natarajan, whichever one of Pant and DK was dropped, so Pant for me. Probably Dhawan or Ishan Kishan as well. And reserves Shubman Gill or Gaikwad, but Shubman Gill I just wrote. Uh, I wrote Avesh Khan and I wrote Washington Sundar.
Interesting squad you have there. Oh, you have any questions towards him?
Let's leave questions. Let's finish the squads. So
You go.
I'll just start with Rohit, KL, Kohli. Uh, the bottom three, it's the top, next three is the same as Vivian. I don't want Pant there. So Suryakumar Yadav, Hardik Pandya, Dinesh Karthik. The bottom five, I want Kuldeep and Chahal, as I said, but the side doesn't work out. So Jadeja, Harsha, Bhuvaneshwar, Bumrah, Chahal will be my five bowlers along with Hardik Pandya. But an ideal squad would be Harshal, Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, Kuldeep Yadav, Bumrah, Chahal. I think it depends a lot on how Kohli plays, how Kohli and Rohit play. If those two do well, then you can actually play that. In your backups, you'll have Rishabh Pant for me, and you'll have Ishan Kishan. So two the same similar kind of players as backups, but different positions. And then you have Aksar Patel and Natarajan. In your reserves, I have Shreyas Iyer. I don't think we even had him. Kuldeep Yadav. And as my last pacer, I think there are many options that one might consider. An obvious choice would be Avesh Khan, and an obvious choice would be like all these other players that are there. But I genuinely think Umran Malik should be in the reserves. I don't know why. I just feel that he should. I know I've myself said that he's overrated and it's just he's being pushed forward because of his pace and whatnot. But I think he could add a real surprise element on those Australian pitches. If this was an Indian, like if the World Cup was anywhere other than Australia or England, I wouldn't have said this. But I think Umran Malik can do something, so I think he should be in the reserves. And yeah, that's my squad.
Yeah, very similar squads you both have. I'll go with mine. Obviously, the starting 11 looks kind of similar. Rohit and KL at the top. It's followed by Sky and Virat Kohli. At number five, I've actually put Jadeja. I don't have Pant in my team, so I would like to have a left-hand batsman in there to break it up. And I believe Jadeja is perfectly capable of batting at number five. He's a great player of pace as well. He had a poor IPL, but before that, in the T20Is versus Sri Lanka, I believe. He batted at number five the whole series and didn't get out once. He was batting really well, obviously. 175 not out after that. But I think just a poor IPL has made people doubt him, but I believe he's perfectly capable and he'll come back strong. Number six, Pandya. Number seven, Dinesh Karthik. 8, 9, 10, 11, Harshal Bhuvi, Chahal, and Bumrah. For my bench, uh, things, I have Pant, I have Kuldeep, I have Sanju Samson, who I believe can bat anywhere, opener to like number five, and he's a great player of pace, much better than Ishan Kishan. So I'll go for Sanju Samson, and I'll go Natarajan. Obviously, left-handed. He's a gun bowler in the IPL. For most of this IPL, he was really good. Just when he came back after injury, after missing a few games, he dipped off, but he's really good. And you got to remember in 2020 when we toured Australia, uh, he had an amazing T20 series. He was although Hardik got man of the series, personally, I thought he was the best player that series, and so did Hardik because Hardik gave Natarajan his award. So I'll have Natarajan in there to round off the 15. My reserves will be Venkatesh Iyer. I think he did really well as a finisher in Sri Lanka against Sri Lanka and against West Indies, and he gives you bowling and batting, and he can bat anywhere in the order. So I think he's a handy reserve to have. We'll go with Avesh Khan. Just even though he hasn't had a good series, I think he's the best alternative right now, because just his hard lengths and his pace useful in Australia, I would say. And my last spot, like you guys said, between Aksar and Washington Sundar, I'll probably lean towards Washington Sundar right now because Washington played in Australia last time, and I think Washington's batting capabilities are a bit more, as we saw for Sunrisers this time. So those are our squads for the T20 World Cup after the India versus South Africa series. We'll obviously see how they progress. India is playing Ireland next week for a T20 series, couple T20Is. We have a favorite of mine, Rahul Tripathi, in the squad. Sanju Samson's back, so hopefully they can perform really well, and I'll be able to include them in my updated squad after that series. But make sure to look out for our review on that. Any closing thoughts, guys?
Subscribe, like, share with all of your four friends, and oh shit, oh, I'm so stupid. Subscribe, like, share it with all of your four friends, and yeah, thank you guys for watching.
Wait, wait,
Bye.
wait, wait.
Okay.
Okay.
This series was absolutely